Hollywood icons Betty White and Sidney Poitier pass away as Morbius is delayed yet again, and we celebrate the first year of Cinema Unchained by counting down our best and worst films of 2021. I'm Darius Delsoin.
And I'm Joe Acierno. This is Cinema Unchained. All right, folks, there you have it. We've officially been into this racket for about a year now. It's crazy to say, and, looking back on it, it's been quite an eventful year. I'll say that much. Definitely had a lot to talk about, and definitely, I can at least say I've enjoyed talking about it with Darius here. Now, before we celebrate the life and career of the one and only Betty White, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, and more. And if you want to help out the show, give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you can, and follow our social media pages that are listed in the description. Now, before we count down our worst, very worst films of 2021, legendary screen star Betty White passed away on New Year's Eve at the age of 99, just 17 days before her 100th birthday. And at least one thing that I guess, puts me a little bit more at ease is that she died of natural causes in her sleep at her home in Los Angeles. She had a career spanning over 8 decades. That's not something you read about too much. So she was a pioneer of early television. She was often referred to as the first lady of TV. And I know, it's it's weird. I remember talking with my friends a couple days before she died, and how we were reading how she was coming up on her 100th birthday and what she was going to do to celebrate and all that stuff. And we're all just oh man, if she goes now, right before her 100th birthday, it would just be really sad. Just be real. It'd almost be really kind of disappointing too. But at least you can look back at the life and career that she had, and at least know that she made the most out of it, right?
I mean, she definitely did. Like you said, she's an icon in television. She's considered one of the first ladies of television, and I think that paved the way for a lot of other actresses that have come up afterwards, and who are also beloved. And I think Betty White definitely paved some of that. And again, we can appreciate for her for being who she is, of course, because again, 99, you've been in the industry for so long. You've made an impact, and a lot of generations have seen you get older, and you've seen a lot of generations get to their peak in acting, and they're even surpassing it in many ways. So it is unfortunate that she passed away. I was really expecting her to hit that 100, just like my great-grandmother is.
Same here.
But, but she's still alive in our souls. As long as we remember her, she's still very much alive. It's just the body's given out, so.
Yeah, exactly. And again, especially since she's very much alive, considering how much everybody still has to enjoy from what she's given us. I mean, my personal favorite, at least from what I've seen on, The Golden Girls, right? I've only seen a few episodes, but based on what I've seen, it's obviously such a great show. There's a reason why it's really stood the test of time. The couple episodes that I watched, it's just really funny, and it's really sharp too. It didn't really feel like a sort of lowbrow humor. There's just something very, I don't know, well done and respectful about it too. It's just really, really funny. It's a great show from what I've seen. And I remember my family and I love watching that movie, The Proposal, with her, Ryan Reynolds, and Sandra Bullock. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch it, it's a very funny movie. Definitely recommend checking it out. And she, of course, is hysterical in it too. And, again, I personally was really rooting for her to make it to 100. And like I said, I really thought she was going to, because of how active she seemed to be in, within the last few years, right? She was pretty active up until the very end, really, if you really think about it.
Yeah, definitely. So again, my heart goes out to Betty White, her family, everyone. But like I said, as long as we all still remember her and the importance of her and what she represents, I think she's still alive. Again, that's just how I view, when people pass away nowadays. Just on occasion, the body gives out, but the soul pretty much lives on through memories and stories, and I think that's another great thing of humans, that it's our way of how we tell stories and history, and that's also what makes us human too, to a certain extent as well. And time and time again, people like Betty White have shown we are extraordinary people as well.
And we could stand the test of time long after our bodies have given out, right? So she is someone that will certainly be missed. And again, for all you guys that are listening with us, there's no way you don't have any sort of favorite on-screen moments from Betty White. Of course, that comment section is there for you to share them there. So please don't be shy in doing so. All right, now before we get into Morbius being delayed yet again, obviously, 2021 was a fairly eventful year for movies, to say the least. Lots of highs, lots of lows, lots of strange stuff in between. So right now, Darius and I are going to count down our five top, or I guess bottom five films of 2021. Just before I get into my number five, just one dishonorable mention I want to give a shout out to is Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch. I was very disappointed watching this movie. Wes Anderson is definitely someone that I enjoy most of the filmography of. I was expecting better than what I got, and I just felt like his signature quirkiness just didn't really hit it for me in this one, but that's all I really have to say about that. Darius, you gotta have a couple of dishonorable mentions, right?
Yeah, I have a few. I'll start off with *Malignant*. I really expected James Wan to pull it this time around, but it just turned out I it wasn't the James Wan horror I was wanting or expecting, and I just didn't think the characters were all that interesting. Again, that was a big disappointment of a film. Another one would have to be Space Sweepers and man, I can't believe I'm saying this too. Little Things. Those are also some of the worst ones, and again, Little Things. That was just great cast, but I don't think it was a very well developed script. Space Sweepers. You can see our review on that one, but I've changed my mind over the course because I saw it again and I was just like, yeah, this is terrible. So yeah, those are some of my dishonorable mentions.
All right, so now I'm just going to get right into it. My number five worst film of the year is, I think, Darius. I have an odd feeling this will be on your list too. Maybe I'm just making a cocky prediction, but Venom Let There Be Carnage. Yep. Figured you'd have that reaction for this one. And, of course, Venom and Eddie battle the symbiote Carnage as it's attached to Cletus Cassidy. And again, I remember, with all the trailers that were released for this one, you and I had a few conversations about this one on the show before the movie actually came out. And I actually had some hope for this one. And it just didn't live up to it at all. It was definitely a shorter than average film, but at the same time, it still felt longer than it needed to be. It was a little too ridiculous and too weird for me to enjoy. The villains are underwritten, and this is just a prime example of how the PG-13 rating is holding back Venom from being something truly great, something that could be genuinely scary or even graphic and gory, while still keeping up with that comedy element too. I feel like there's just so many missed opportunities there. And I remember the trailers that we saw before watching this film in the theater were actually better than the film. But the best thing I have to say about this film was that post-credit scene that got me psyched for Spider-Man No Way Home. One thing I will never forget. I went to this particular showing with you, William, Paul, my brother, and my future sister-in-law. And my brother had never met you before. So his first impression of you was you running from a couple rows in front of us to sprinting past him, scaring the shit out of him just to geek out about that credit scene for Spider-Man No Way Home. So if there's one good thing I got out of that viewing experience, sure as hell wasn't the movie, but it was definitely that memory of my brother's first impression of you. So that's my number five.
Oh man, what a first impression! Oh man, I mean, you've shared one of my worst films of 2021, and that is also Venom Let There Be Carnage. As a Spider-Man fan, I did not like Venom 1 for a multitude of different reasons, and I was hoping for the sequel to change my mind because of Carnage, because I equally love Carnage as I do with Venom, and I think Carnage is even more psychotic and more as a perfect symbiote than Venom because just of how powerful he is. That's why he's normally stronger than Venom, but this film has also done Carnage wrong, in my opinion. Did weird things with, again, just it did not click with me, it did not vibe. The only good thing I can say is really that post-credit scene, and that was it. I like Eddie Brock, I like Tom Hardy, but just the approach of how they do Venom, I am just not vibing, and it doesn't click with me. I would have preferred they approach it in a way of Alien, honestly, but I don't think they did, and again, their target audience I also think is kind of weird for a character like Venom. So Venom Let There Be Carnage, definitely one of my worst films of 2021.
All right, so let's move right along. My number four is going to have to be Cry Macho, and this is very disappointing considering the fact that Clint Eastwood is one of my favorite directors, and he honestly did a very flat job directing this one. In 1979, a former rodeo star is hired to find a man's son in Mexico and bring him back to the U.S. And here's the thing. The only thing that this movie really has going for it, the really big thing, is that Clint Eastwood, surprisingly enough, at 91 years old, he still has a considerable amount of on-screen charisma. But at the same time, there's just so much surrounding him that really drags this movie down. There are a couple of terrible supporting performances in there, namely Eduardo Minette as Eastwood's young kid sidekick. He is just nearly unwatchable. And I know people are thinking like, oh, you're not going to criticize a juvenile performance, are you? Yeah, I am. Because when you look at the trio of lead performances in Jojo Rabbit, when you look at the trio of lead performances from the Harry Potter movies, I can go on and on and on. Someone being under a certain age is just not that much of an excuse anymore, considering what we've gotten in cinema over the last number of years. Also, the script for the film was very weak. Dialogue is just very uninspired. The climax and resolution, it didn't even feel like one. The pacing really dragged its feet. And I'm surprised someone with the talent and magnitude of Clint Eastwood saw a script this bad and said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Why not? Mm-hmm. So, Cry Macho, obviously very, very, very disappointing.
Yeah, for me, my next one would be, unfortunately, one of my other... Again, I'm a fan of this stuff as a geek. Will have to be Mortal Kombat. As much as I did enjoy it, because I still do to this day, I still do, it is still, in my opinion, a really badly paced film. Terribly written with dialogue and exposition and a multitude of other things creatively they just did with that franchise, and that was a big disappointment, at least in that sense. I still enjoyed the gore, I still enjoyed some of the other aspects, but as far as story, because I think Mortal Kombat just, as a game, has so much lore that they just under-delivered in a lot of the ways that was disappointing.
Well, yikes. All right, so I guess moving right along to my number 3 is Fast and Furious 9. Oh my God. So basically, if you've never seen, I don't know if there's anyone out there that really hasn't seen much of the Fast and Furious movies, but at the end of the day, it's pretty much the same general concept. A bunch of handsome, athletic people must find something so it doesn't destroy the world. You know, it sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Again, now, when it comes to the Fast and Furious movies, they've definitely developed a reputation of just, like, ridiculous, over-the-top action sequences and set pieces. There's just, and again, this movie outdoes itself in, like, the worst way possible. I mean, I don't know what was worse. You know, the slingshot, or, you know, slingshotting a car onto a cliff, a car driving off another cliff and getting caught by a magnetic aircraft, or the fact that they literally went to space. They went to space in a car. I remember, like, picking up my one friend. We were talking about the movie with her parents, and, you know, they were basically saying, like, you know, they read the reviews, said, like, you know, the action is, you know, ridiculous or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm waiting for the point where they go into space. Here's the thing. I literally just pulled that joke out of my ass. I never actually thought that they'd go into space. It's just hilarious with just, like, the amount of dumbfounded looks I exchanged with people in the theater throughout this film. There's one conversation that's, like, supposed to be, like, two characters, I guess, like, kind of flirting and interrogating with each other, but they're, like, making, like, a bunch of Star Wars references, and I'm like, what am I actually watching here? How did I just wander into watching something like this? This is just fucking crazy. And, you know, this movie has no plot whatsoever, and it just boggles my mind how a movie with no plot managed to run for, like, 2.5 hours. There's one character, Han, that's just magically brought to life. He clearly dies in Tokyo Drift. And it's not like he just, like, dies off screen or whatnot. He really dies. Like, he explodes and everything, and he's just magically brought to life in this movie. And I remember, Darius, if there's one thing I really got to give you crap for, is I remember I was so pissed when I found out from you right before the movie started that he wouldn't be able to review it with me for the show. I was so mad because I'm like, this is the main reason I'm watching this movie, this stupid fucking movie, and we can't even review it on the show. I lost so many brain cells watching this one. I'm really grateful I didn't have to drive home from it. I know this movie has a lot to do with, like, driving and cars and stuff like that, but honestly, do not operate heavy machinery after watching this film.
Yeah, and it just so happens that's also my number 2 because I finally got around to watching it, and I was just like, wow, Joe was right. This is just a bit. Why am I still watching? Like, I was still watching it as I'm watching it. My dad and I paused it multiple times, and we're just like, what is going on? So, Fast and Furious is definitely there, and you've stated all the reasons I was going to state too, because that was just, yikes. That was a bomb, in my opinion, and I don't even want to think about or talk about the movie. It's that bad.
Darius, you might not like this one, but my number 2 worst film of 2021 is America the Motion Picture. Now, for those of you who don't know about it, this is a satirical, animated, and extremely revisionist take on the American Revolution. And this is one of those movies that was full comedy. Like a lot of movies walk the tightrope between like, comedy and drama, or at least, try to have dramatic moments in the comedy. Like this is full on comedy, and it just really wasn't funny at all.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there are a couple chuckles here and there, but that's it. It felt like it was trying way too hard to get attention and be funny. It was very forced and over the top. It had a pretty solid voice cast too, that I felt like they just didn't make the most out of. No one was necessarily bad, but no one was really great too. And it was supposed to be dumb fun, but really all I got was dumb. And I looking back, like I remember, like this was my fault that we reviewed this on the show. Like I was the one that suggested watching this one. This is all on me, so I get to live with that. And all I could say is thank God this is on Netflix, because if I had to pay any extra to watch this, whether it's just like video on demand or even just seeing it in the theater, I would have been really pissed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand that. I'm sorry, bro. I know I have a different view on that one. My number two will actually be Reminiscence, and this was a film I was actually really excited for because I love Westworld, and it was from the creators of Westworld. I think it was the writer director, and I think she was doing this one, so it intrigued me, and I liked the concept. And as I'm watching it, it was too slow for its own being. Nothing really got anywhere, and it was just it didn't go anywhere. When you think it did, it backtracked itself multiple times. I thought the action was subpar. Like the fact that I think a Westworld has better action than this movie, that also says a lot. Because Westworld is not really known for its action necessarily. But even with the action and Reminiscence, it just wasn't, the camera angles, everything just was not. It didn't feel impactful, or at least it should have felt it. How they filmed it made it feel as if it should, but it didn't. And I think this was just a very underdeveloped idea in script. And unfortunately, it seems like a very undeveloped idea, which leads into a much weaker script. And I was not enjoying my. I actually stopped watching it a few times. I had to finish it on my fifth viewing.
Oh Jesus, yeah. No, I remember like being intrigued by that one, but then like it just not ending up going with it because I've all the things I read about it. So Darius, I'm at my number one. Guess what my number one worst film of 2021 is? Go ahead, guess.
Does it start with the letter E?
No.
Okay, I don't know.
Space Sweepers. Surprise, surprise. For those of you who don't know, a band of space garbage men have to protect an android girl from an evil CEO. Once again, is it just me, or has the evil CEO thing been done so many times? And again, I understand that like certain story beats, they just get repeated over and over again, but what makes certain movies stand out is how they go about doing it. This movie was not one of those movies. This movie was just terribly executed all around. Could have been fun, but really just squandered everything that it could have had going for it. Totally inconsistent. And like I think I made this point in like my full or our full review of it. Again, fart jokes and the graphic sci-fi thriller, it just didn't mesh right with the rest of the film. It just didn't go well together. The acting is terrible. The dialogue, holy shit. I guarantee you, if I got my 10-year-old cousin to write a screenplay, he could have done better with dialogue on that one. The editing was terrible, especially with the action sequences. The dubbing, oh my god, that was rough. This was honestly rough. It definitely felt its length of 2 hours and 16 minutes. Again, certain movies just have to feel a certain length. Certain movies are justified with being a certain length. This movie was neither one of those. It was just rough. And I'm going to be honest, Darius, this is another one where I was not happy after when you suggested reviewing this film when I was at the halfway or a half-hour mark into this movie. This movie, I think it cost like the South Korean equivalent of $21 million to make. And I'm going to be honest, it would have been better off just setting the money on fire.
Oh, man. Oof. That sounds rough, man.
Yep.
My would have to be, and when I do worst films, I want to say just films I was not enjoying necessarily. That didn't click with me, and I didn't necessarily like. That it's not. It's on a level of I didn't love it. I may have liked it, but at the same time, I didn't have any enjoyment or connection to it, and it's unfortunate. This is a Marvel movie I'm mentioning, and that would be Eternals. I
Oh
was
shit.
not enjoying this movie. I did not like a good chunk of the characters. I felt the idea was cool, but it felt very underdeveloped, and it felt longer than it should be, considering this is also Chloe Zhao's, I guess, first big Marvel movie, and I don't think it really developed a lot of the things I at least wanted or expected. It didn't surpass my expectations. I literally left the theater saying, this might be one of the worst MCU movies I actually watched. Or it's in my top like worst MCU films, and because I just was not vibing with it at all. Like I felt nothing throughout the film, and that's unfortunate. I wanted to feel something, but I really didn't. So Eternals will definitely be up there as my number one worst movie of this year, especially as a MCU fan. And you know me, Joe. So this was.
No, no. You a comic book fan? No, I haven't
I
picked that
mean,
up
I'll
in the
take it
last
over
5 years
Let There
of
Be
knowing you.
Carnage, but still, it still was not vibing with me at all. And I hope the movie
Yeah, yeah.
did at least something, but it just didn't. And my mom looked at me and said, "What did you think?" I'm just like, eh, I don't know. I feel nothing. I don't care.
I feel nothing. I've lost all feeling everywhere.
So, yep, that's my number one.
Alrighty then. Alright, so for all you guys, what movies made you regret turning on the TV or getting in the car to go to the theater this year? Let us know about them in the comments section. And of course, moving forward, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Google Podcasts, Listed Notes, the Podcast Index, Stitcher, and more. And if you want to help out the show, why wouldn't you want to help out the show? Please give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you can. And follow our social media pages that are listed in the description. Before we remember the one and only Sidney Poitier, according to IGN, the next superhero flick from Sony Pictures, aka Morbius, has been delayed from the end of this month, January, to April 1st, 2022, because of, guess what? COVID-19. Now, Darius, were you the one that suggested this one?
Yes.
That we talk about this one today? Okay. Now, I'm going to be honest. How much do you still care about this one?
Because they delayed it, not so much, but I'm still interested in the film. I like Morbius. I think Morbius as a character and even getting it on film is cool, but just like they keep delaying it to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'd rather take this over the Uncharted film. Like I like the fact that I have to go through Uncharted first to get to Morbius. That's sad. So I'm disappointed because it just doesn't make sense. Like January is such an easy month that this film could actually be good or do well at the box office, but they chose not to and put
Yeah.
it up against Sonic the Hedgehog 2 7 days before that movie. So I don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, I have a lot more confidence in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Again, can't believe I'm saying that. I have a lot more confidence in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 than I do this film. And again, just before I forget, again, obviously this movie stars Jared Leto, and it's about the anti-hero Michael Morbius, who, after being diagnosed with a rare blood disease, discovers a cure for himself that comes at a dark price. And I'm going to be honest, like, ever since, like, that first trailer came out, I really have had almost no confidence in this film. I have no confidence. I have no interest. And I'll be excited for, like, because like I'm one of those guys that like likes going to the movies, but like likes to be on time for the show so I could see the previews, and I'll be excited to be like, oh, what previews
Yeah.
are we gonna get to see? And then this will come on and be like, God, this is a waste of 2.5 minutes. Like I almost want this just to come out so I can stop seeing previews in theaters for this one.
Oh man. I mean, I've grown. It's not like I've grown disattached, but it's just like, why delay it? It doesn't make sense. January is a prime month to at least be considered one of the good films, financially at least too. But the fact that they delay it to April 1st and 7 days before Sonic, I don't think is gonna do well, and that's.
Yeah, it's just not gonna
And
do
I
well.
don't know why they made that decision. It's such an odd thing because January to me is that month where it's an easy grab to probably be like, yeah,
Yeah.
this film will probably be better than everything else, even entertainment wise. So let's just try to get as much money from this. But they're just like, nope, we want to go up against Sonic 2. And I'm just like, all right, you know what, you do you.
and again, I've said this 1,000 times before too, because again, January, I hate this because this is my birth month, but January is like the dumping ground for a lot of bad movies,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the fact that they're moving this from January, which I'm going to be honest, like I said, I have no confidence in this film, could have been like, the shinier of all the turd sandwiches, right?
Exactly.
So, but so like, again, the fact that they're pushing it back to April when I think that there's going to be more better coming out in April than January, you start to question certain things.
Mm-hmm. So it is what it is, Sony. I don't know what you're doing, but I hope you recuperate the money you invested in this movie.
Or don't. So, again, for everyone, do any of you actually still care about this film? Like, am I in the minority on this one? Comment wherever it is that you can. And now, before we reveal our favorite films of 2021, this past Thursday, on January 6th, trailblazing actor Sidney Poitier passed away at the age of 94. And I remember, like, I had, like, a pretty audible reaction when I got this news alert on my phone, and I immediately got a text from my mom after. So I guess she got the same news alert I did. Um, Again, if you haven't heard of this real, like I said, giant in the industry, he was the first black person to win the Academy Award for Best
Mm.
Actor in Lilies of the Field, which follows a handyman helping a group of German-speaking nuns that they want to build a chapel. A lot of other acclaimed performances of his are, in the Defiant ones. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and my personal favorite of his, In the Heat of the Night, which follows a Philadelphia detective played by Poitier, and he must cooperate with the bigoted police chief of Sparta, Mississippi, to solve a murder. And honestly, that's just a phenomenal movie altogether. So I honestly, looking at him, his life, his career, and exactly what he's accomplished too, he's another one that's really going to be missed.
Man, we're just losing icons one by one, man. This is big,
Yeah,
and like you said, he's made an impact in the industry. My heart goes out to him, his family, that sort of thing. But just the
same here.
idea of just another icon like him, after Betty White and him, is just it takes a toll on some people, and sometimes and especially considering um, society wise and socially and what's going on, I think this is also kind of if people know of him, it's gonna hit, and people are gonna realize it that you know the the him being also like you said the first black man to win an award and everything. That's big. So and I really hope people remember him. That's another thing. Like you gotta remember him in some way because I have a feeling
Yeah.
he's gonna be again socially wise with what's going on as well, that maybe some people don't care or just gonna look over and look at something else in entertainment that's better or whatever, but not something that's meant to be true to character and shows someone's determination in an industry that was probably against them, that sort of thing. It's still happening, but like I think there's definitely a misguidance of some kind. So it's unfortunate he passed. Always remember him. Just like what I said with Betty White. So soul's
Yeah.
still alive.
It's funny that you mentioned, like, remembering him. The most recent memory I have of him is him presenting at the Oscars a few years ago with another celebrity. And I'm going to be honest, like, I don't remember the other celebrity, but I remember thinking, that one standing next to Sidney Poitier, I'm like, you got nothing on this guy. So, it's just, like I said, he's, it's definitely a remarkable life that will be missed. And I honestly do think remembered for a long time to come.
Yeah.
And him and Betty White, because like how at the Oscars they have like that in memoriam section,
Yeah.
they better not get left off that, and I'd be very surprised if they do. But again, like I said, someone that will certainly be missed. And again, for all you guys, are there any memorable moments or factoids that we got to mention as far as Sidney Poitier? And you know what, that's what the comment section is for. So again, anything that maybe we didn't cover or something you feel like talking about when it comes to him, leave them in the comment section. Alrighty, and now to cap off the show, on I guess a bright note, we're going to reveal our top 5 films of
All
2021. The
right.
films that actually made us happy to go to the movies this year. That justified or at least further justified the movie theater experience for the most part. And now I'm just going to reveal my honorable mentions. They are Don't Look Up, Bo Burnham's Inside, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Tick Tick Boom.
I like that. I like that. That's some nice honorable mentions. I'm hurt on one of them, but it's all right, bro. um, my honorable mentions, and it was hard because it was just like there were so many movies we saw last year. So doing this
Hmm.
list, I had to take certain things out I wanted to keep, but some of them will be Malcolm Marie, Don't Look Up, Shang-Chi, House of Gucci, Suicide Squad, In the Heights, Tick Tick Boom, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Those are just some of my honorable mentions of other films I just freaking loved and wanted to put in my official fave films, but it's still part of it, but I want to give more light to the ones I absolutely love that took the spotlight for me.
Hmm. All right, so why don't you start out the countdown? What's your number
My
five?
number five will actually be Last Night in Soho. I absolutely love this movie for a lot of just for the nature of it being a psychological thriller and the Anya Taylor Joy, excellent as she always is. I love the approach that I love the directing style. I love everything nearly almost about it. I did have some issues, but overall, it was an experience that I will never forget because I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. And ooh, when I walked out the theater, I was just like, oh, like as if something was lifted off of me. And I was like, this was good.
All right, so my number five film of 2021 is In the Heights. Based on the acclaimed musical from Lin-Manuel Miranda, it is the intersecting stories of multiple residents of the Washington Heights, New York area neighborhood during a heat wave. And again, the biggest thing that this movie has going for it is just really the impeccable direction from John M. Chu. The movie itself, and again, Darius, to use one of your lines when we had this review in full, the movie itself is a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Every scene, every cut just goes so smoothly together. It juggles so much and streamlines everything going on perfectly. There's just one great scene after another. There's a lot of heart and humor in this movie. Every cast member is great. The movie overall just has a really terrific energy, especially with the musical scenes too. The musicality, characters, and just filmmaking. This movie just had so much going for it. Just didn't feel like like your run of the mill adaptation of a popular musical. I saw this movie twice, no regrets whatsoever.
Nice. My number four will be A Quiet Place Part 2. Absolutely love this film.
Nice.
This was just thrilling, engaging. Again, love the uses of the silence and the creature design. It nailed in a lot of ways, and he's John Krasinski, 2 for 2, man. My God, this
Mm-hmm.
dude knows how to tell a good story. Love it. So, Quiet Place Part 2, definitely my number four. Love horror. Loved the direction, just the editing, the sound design. My God. But we'll get into another film that took my breath away pretty shortly. So,
All right, my number four is The Green Knight. The headstrong nephew of King Arthur must journey to confront the mysterious Green Knight after landing a blow against him the year before. This is based on the iconic story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. And again, this movie technically has so much going for it. The audio work on this film, between the sound design and the musical score, is just masterful. This movie is gorgeous to look at. Cinematography, production design, visual effects, just, oh, geez, it's like definitely a feast for the eyes. And it's very consistent with A24 and
mm-hmm.
how, like, no matter the story that they have going on, or at least a story on like the more dramatic end of things, this film had a very unnerving feeling throughout. Even if nothing scary was happening at the moment, you always felt like something bad was going to happen, and just kept me on edge throughout the entire time. And the ambiguity of this film made for amazing discussions after leaving the theater,
Mm-hmm.
which I think makes it more memorable. And I remember, again, just having a great conversation on our way home from the theater with you and Roberto. Just that driveway home was like a 20-minute drive. I think we were talking about the movie pretty much the entire
Oh
time.
yeah.
And the biggest thing that I'll remember too is getting approached by so many people after watching the film asking if I'd seen the movie. Because, like, again, that story that I told in our full review, like, we came out of the movie. I went to the bathroom, went to go take a piss, and there's another guy on the urinal next to me, and another one just walks in, goes to my left, and out of nowhere, like, as we're all going, he goes, "Did any of you guys see the Green Knight?" And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, someone just, like, just randomly approached by so many people after watching this movie asking if we'd seen the Green Knight. Like they had, like, some sort of sense that we had seen the movie. And that sense was enough for them to actually ask us about it. Like, it must have been just, like, written on our foreheads or whatever. But honestly, Green Knight, I do feel like this movie was kind of overlooked. I feel like it
Hmm.
should be getting more buzz now, but that's just my personal opinion. So it's definitely one of the best films of the year, in my, at least to me.
I agree because that's my number three. That's the Green Knight was just fantastic, and the sound design, my God, just
Yep.
from the 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 creature itself and just hearing and seeing all the pieces moving and hearing that felt intense. Every sound just felt intense. Like and the environment felt dense musically and sound audio sound design wise. I was blown away from this movie, specifically just from the sound design. That was the biggest highlight. Then everything else, like you said, the ambiguity and the cinematography just neatly layered one another in just such a masterful way that I would just, like you
Hmm.
said, we just walked out having a conversation, deeper thought, because it's not meant to give you a straight answer. And I love that. So, definitely the
Yep.
Green Knight for me. Absolutely love it.
All right, my number three of 2021 is Belfast. And this movie is basically a year in the life of a Northern Irish family in the late 1960s as their young son comes of age amidst social unrest. This is basically a semi autobiography to the childhood of writer director Kenneth Branagh. And I have to say, this movie really handled all of its moving parts in its story very well. Again, it deals with family drama, it deals with coming of age, like I mentioned, the social unrest. There's just so much that this movie takes on and decides to incorporate it in its story, and it handles it all so well. The humor, it's very funny too, at points too. The humor measures in with the drama, the heart, and the tension very well. And this movie basically is one giant metaphor of finding warmth in times of peril. Like, no matter what it is that you have going on around you, if you can find like these wonderfully human moments, whether they be funny or touching, if you can find these no matter what you're going through, then honestly, you're golden. And I have to say, too, the black and white serves the film very well. It gives both a very nostalgic and very bleak feeling, too, because, again, there's a lot of weighty things that this movie deals with. There are a lot of very tense scenes. And that tension, like I said, is through the roof when the time comes. So, again, there's another terrific black and white film. And, again, Belfast is definitely unlike most of the films that I've seen this year. So that's why it's my number three.
Nice. For me, and this is actually a tie, believe it or not, because I couldn't decide which one. So I just at least want to put these two in 'cause I realize I have six, not five. So I'm like, you know what? I will put these both in like the number two spot, and that will be Dune and the Mitchells versus the Machines. I love so
Okay.
Dune. I absolutely love. Still very dense. Cinematography is amazing. The sound, the score, everything about it. I actually don't have a problem with a lot of stuff in that movie. I really don't. And Mitchell's versus Machines reminds me of How to Train Your Dragon in the sense of it's just a very heartfelt story and it's very intimate and it has nice themes to it. And it was a fun movie as well to enjoy, but you can feel the drama between even these characters in an animated world, and I absolutely love it. So those are definitely in the same slot for me because I couldn't just decide. So I'm just like they're both in number two. I That's it.
All right, let's see. My number two film of 2021 is, surprisingly enough, West Side Story. Now, this is Steven Spielberg's remake of the classic musical film that follows two star-crossed lovers from rival gangs in 1950s New York. And I saw this trailer before every film in the theater most of the year. And I'm going to be honest, I was initially skeptical. I'm like, oh, why are they doing this one? Is it really necessary? And I'm going to be honest, Spielberg, he did right by this movie.
Okay.
His films are usually criticized for being a little too sappy, a little too sentimental, but there's a point right before you hit that threshold of being too sentimental, and right before there you get like a genuine heart that's very satisfying, and that's exactly where this rendition of West Side Story is. It's definitely pretty loyal to the 1961 film. That film turned 60 this past year. And even though it's mostly loyal, there are some story tweaks that I felt like enhanced the film.
Mm-hmm.
They made Tony's the character of Tony's past a bit more complicated. Overall, I felt like there's a clearer sense of the characters. Everyone in the movie is really strong, but Rachel Zegler as Maria and Ariana DeBose, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, as Anita, are standouts. They are incredible in the film. They're definitely Oscar contenders. There are a lot of kinetic and impactful action scenes, whether people are fighting with each other, whether people are singing and dancing with each other. Cinematography, sets, and costumes are just beautiful to look at. And one of the things that really made me sad was this movie was honestly a box office bomb. This movie had a budget of about $100 million, and I think as of us recording this podcast, it's only grossed about $49 million,
Oof.
which yeah, it's pretty bad. And I was kind of stunned because I figured like, okay, something like this, I thought a lot of people would end up seeing, but I guess not. And again, just leading up to this film, I wasn't sure whether or not it'd be good. I had no idea it'd be one of the best films of the year, and I really never expected it to be better than the original film.
Really? Okay.
So I was blown away by this movie. So
Yeah, I still need to
that's
see
that.
West Side Story. So
You should see it in the theater if you can.
yeah. So my number one, and I'm guessing Joe, you may know my number one. So
I know you're number one.
because this number one film. I had a journey with this film. From the announcement to when it was released. I was very skeptical. I had a strong feeling about the franchise, but that is Spider-Man: No Way Home. I love this movie on all fronts, and again, Spider-Man is one of my favorite comic book heroes of all time. So seeing that their approach to this, it is still kept to Peter's central story, and you actually felt that there were actually stakes in his life, in his journey. The whole idea of the multiverse, I don't think should have been in a Spider-Man movie, but I appreciate it more often because this felt like the end game all over again for me, and I didn't expect the MCU to do this a second time, which is an incredible feat in itself. And again, they did it with a singular character. And Spider-Man: No Way Home, I just seeing the three Spider-Man on screen, knowing that I grew up with the Raimi trilogy, then Amazing Spider-Man, and now Tom Holland, seeing all three on screen, that was magical. That was something. And as I'm watching this, I teared up a few times, and I was just thinking to myself, if Stan Lee was alive today, oh my gosh, he would have he's probably just looking down like, yes, this is, yeah. But this movie just it blew me away. It surpassed my expectations from what I wanted and expected in a Spider-Man movie. And this felt like Into the Spider-Verse in a lot of ways. I still think I like Into the Spider-Verse more, but the fact that they were able to capture what I think made Into the Spider-Verse so good and special and blended it into Peter's story and the importance of Peter Parker and the importance of power. With great power comes great responsibility. And amazing lines yet again, or at least nostalgic wise, that still hold true to today, and even the character stayed intact. I love this movie. I saw it basically a bunch of times, and I still loved it, and I still cried every single viewing.
All right, now again, Darius, I'm gonna say the same thing like you did to me. I have an odd feeling you know what my number one film of 2021 is, and that, of course, is Dune. For those of you who don't know, this is based on the classic novel by Frank Herbert. A ducal heir must aid a dangerous desert planet in protecting the galaxy's most valuable resource. And this was originally supposed to come out in December of 2020. Got delayed almost a year. And I'm going to be honest, it was worth the wait.
Mm-hmm.
It was worth the wait, worth the year-long delay, because this film is a masterwork on every single aspect of filmmaking. This is just a massive and ambitious film. It felt as big as it needed to be. This movie is gorgeous to look at, sounds gorgeous, cinematography, editing, visual effects, sets, costume design. Oh my God. I felt like I was in the world of the film, and I felt like everything was happening to me. It effectively builds the world, the lore, the story, and the characters with its narrative. And even though it ends at the halfway mark of the book, it still feels enough to stand on its own as a film, even though I do feel like the real legacy of this film will be determined when part 2 is done and comes out.
Yeah.
Again, this has Hans Zimmer doing the score. Like I said when we reviewed this film, he is my favorite film composer working today, and he manages to compose something yet again that can still stand out in his filmography. Again, with Inception, with the Dark Knight trilogy, with The Lion King. This is quintessential science fiction done spectacularly. This is another win from director Denis Villeneuve. He's definitely one of my favorite directors working today. This now is my favorite film of his. When this movie first came out, I wasn't sure if it would be this or if it would be Arrival. No, this is my favorite film of his now. Like, after really thinking about it, this is the sum total of the movie theater experience and the movie making process. This, again, if they continue the trajectory like they did from what they did with this film, this is definitely the next big franchise. This could be like the Lord of the Rings, the Star Wars, Marvel Cinematic Universe, and or Harry Potter of this time. This is the best film of the year, and this is just, in my opinion, a miraculous achievement to be remembered for many years to come.
Yeah, absolutely loved it.
So, are there any films of yours that you liked it or very much stood out to you in 2021 that Darius and I did not mention? Share them with us in the comments section. And now that's pretty much it. Great way to start off the year. Don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, YouTube, and so much more. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. So if you want to help out the show, give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you can. Tune in next week for our review of Scream, and we'll see you next time.